All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Sunbury Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It's June 29, 2026, 6:30 p.m. Would you please join me in a moment of silent prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance? Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor St. John.
Here.
Mrs. Miller. Here. Mr. Long is absent. Mr. Stotterman.
Here.
Mr. Palma.
Here.
Mrs. Stark is absent. 4 present. We have quorum.
All right, before we get into the public hearing, just want to give everyone a run of show. There are 2 public hearings tonight. We'll run them concurrently. The first is a conditional use for 37 East Granville Street, and then we have the Gateway North PCD. Then the public hearing will close. After the public hearing closes, we will be back on the agenda hearing from 37 East Granville Street. That will be a major commercial site plan. Also, the conditional use, which is part of the public hearing for 37 East Granville, and the rezoning for the Gateway District North PCD. So if you're the applicant, there are 2 sections of the agenda for each of the active public hearing items. And there are 3 items up for consideration tonight. So please stick around for both portions. And anybody that's interested, whether the Planning and Zoning Commission makes recommendations to approve or deny on either of these issues, should stay through item number 5 on the agenda. With that said, let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. The first is the conditional use for 37 East Granville Street. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use for an apartment to be located within their proposed mixed use building. And I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Whitney just to talk about the formalities of the public hearing. I believe we'll get anyone that wishes to speak sworn in, and we will go from there. Mr. Whitney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. As the mayor indicated, my name is Vic Whitney. I'm legal counsel to the Planning and Zoning Commission. As the mayor indicated, the first item on the agenda is this public hearing for the conditional use of 37 East Granville Street. As you can see, we have a stenographer here. This is a public hearing. She's taken down everything that's being said. So in a moment, we will have anyone who is going to offer any comment or testimony onto this as to this conditional use for 37 East Granville Street. We'll have you stand up, raise your right hand, and have you sworn in so that you are sworn prior to giving testimony. If you think you may give testimony at all, please stand up and be sworn in. You don't have to. If you later decide you don't want to offer any comments, that's fine, but we do need you to be sworn in if you are going to offer comments. When I turn it back over to the mayor for this first conditional use, he will in turn start calling persons to provide information, including the applicant and staff, and potentially anybody from the public who wants to offer comment. When he directs you, please come up to the podium, state your full name, first and last name, in case we need to get a hold of you later after this hearing. Speak directly. There's a microphone up there. Try to speak into the microphone so that we can hear you, and more importantly, the stenographer can hear you, and make sure we get everything down that you say. The commission may or may not ask you questions when you're providing testimony. If they do, again, since we're having the stenographer take down everything, please wait for them to ask their question or make their comment before you respond. The stenographer can only take down one person speaking at any time, so that way we make sure the record's clean. In a moment after this first public hearing, we're going to do this all again for the second public hearing on the Gateway District North. So if you're going to testify on that one, don't worry about standing up right now. We'll get you in a moment. So right now, anyone who's going to, again, may provide comment as to the conditional use for 37 East Granville Street. You would please stand up and raise your right hand. I'm going to have the stenographer swear you in, including the applicant.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will present will be the truth and the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes,
I do. And then, Mr. Mayor, prior to turning it back over to you, I do have exhibits to be submitted into the record with respect to this conditional use 37 East Granville Street application. I've marked as Exhibit A 5 pages, which includes the application submitted by the applicant, plan drawings, and a statement evaluating the economic effects on adjoining properties. That's Exhibit A, 5 pages. Exhibit B is the staff report, which is 8 pages, which also includes the general standards applicable to all conditional uses. And with that, 8 pages staff report, Exhibit B. And then Exhibit C is 3 pages. 4 pages, I'm sorry, I didn't write that down. 4 pages, Exhibit C, which is the public hearing and the proof of mailing to the, our public hearing notice and the proof of mailing of the notice to the affected property owners. So with that, I will move to admit Exhibits A, B, and C into the record.
Accept, thank you. Ask one of our staff members to close the door, just for audio purposes. Thank you very much. All right. In terms of orders of operation, we have the applicant here. Welcome. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, whoever's going to be speaking.
Sure, Kelly, take it. Brad, I'll have Sharon Davidson Young, this call, representing stuff.
Thank you for being here, Mrs. Sullivan.
All
All right, thank you.
Get started?
Yeah, go ahead. Floor is yours.
So we were here ago and presented this project previously for just preliminary approval or preliminary discussion. So we're here for a couple of things tonight. This first part, I understand, is just the conditional use approval for the apartments and groups. So we are in the C3 district, and in order to have apartments in the rear of the building, we just need conditional approval to allow that. So the same plan we presented to you guys last time. I don't know if we can hold that up. So we can walk you through where the apartments are, and we do have the staff support of this currently. I think it meets all the requirements of the area. It doesn't put any neighbors. I'll show you the plans real quick. Okay. This is a good place to start. So here's the site plan. It's the building honestly right across the street, so I think everyone's familiar with that. In the front, we'll have commercial tenants, and the first floor is split down the middle.
I'm grabbing the microphone.
Oh, sorry. It's split down the middle of Kelly and her husband Brad's offices, and then in the rear, there will be a 2-bedroom apartment. And that apartment is, you can see up here, is 875 square feet. And then on the second floor, there'll be identical apartment stacked above it as well. And then on the front of that, there is another commercial space, and they don't have a tenant yet, but they'll be potentially tenant. Sure. So pretty simple. Obviously, we're trying to concentrate all of commercial use towards the front on the square, and then the apartments are in the rear, kind of a little more private. Behind the property actually is also residential, kind of at the next parcel. So I think it's a good transition from the commercial front into a commercial space. So.
Yeah, I just want to add too that these apartments, the one, it's going to be for one of my boys. We have 6 kids, 3 in the Navy, and I've got grandkids, and I've got kids all over the country. So when they come back with their babies, that's going to be empty, furnished by me, ready for them to stay. Just because we don't have space there for older kids and grandkids. So that's my plan for one of the apartments. The other one's going to be a long-term rental.
Thank you. Anything else at this point?
No further conditional use.
Okay, great. We're going to go to the staff report, then open it up to public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the applicant noted, the apartments will be in the rear of this building, and they are permitted as a conditional use in C3 Central Business District. The apartments are a conditional use when they're adjacent or above a commercial use, which is satisfied by this. The mixed use development that they're applying for is consistent with the intent of the district. And the project would be a redevelopment of their current site. So it goes into association with the major commercial site plan that we'll hear later. But the project as a whole would be a redevelopment of the building that was torn down due to a structural failure last year. We had a conversation on it last time, but there is no parking requirement in C3, the Central Business District at all. As part of the conditional use, it does list that applicable standards from the R4 or R5 district would need to be brought in for that. One of those standards would be that there is 2 parking spaces per unit. They propose 7, so they would still check that box for parking requirements in C3 district, even if they were held to the standard of the R4 or R5. From what I could see, there was 2 other apartments off of commercial uses in the town square currently. One of them over Branch Pizza to our east, and then one of them over the diner to our north. And then I did recommend approval contingent on the required apartment variance. They are also submitted a variance request for the reduction in apartment size. Per our code, it would need to be 1,020 square feet. They're applying for 875. So if the conditional use is approved, it would still need to get that approval as well for the reduction in square footage.
Does that come from the BZA?
Yes, so the variance approval will come from the BZA. The planning commission will have approval of the major commercial site plan with a recommendation to city council. And then the conditional use itself would be approved by the planning and zoning commission with no other bodies needing approval.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
Nope, that is all.
All right, we'll open it up to public comment. Anybody that was sworn in, would you like to speak? Mr. Barry Bennett, come on up. Can you state your name and address, please?
Barry Bennett.
There we go.
Barry Bennett, 272 High Street. I am not here to voice any objections. I do have two concerns. I am not certain they belong here, so hit the hook if you need to. Those involve, and I will acknowledge before I even begin that I'm well aware that little or no actual engineering has been done yet. But I've seen these things get too far down the road without these kind of things being addressed. The two concerns are storm drainage and parking. As far as storm goes, there is an issue even now with stormwater runoff from that area. It washes down the gravel drive in the back, creates a gully in the gravel up to the catch basin, which actually sits on the back of my property, cuts grooves in the gravel and deposits that gravel into the catch basin and the lawn as well. I see there's a proposal to pave the upper part of this, or actually behind the new building. And that is going to make it much, much worse. So, at this point in time, to date, nobody has been formally or officially maintaining that alleyway. Occasionally I'll drag it flat. Once in a while, I can talk the city into dumping a load of gravel back there and I rake that out, but there are no formal procedures at all for maintaining that alley, and it does get used for access behind all of those buildings, even though it's private property. So I just want to see if we can get that addressed in some way. Possibly even using permeable pavers like we did in the new lot, which might alleviate a lot of those issues. The second one is parking and access. There used to be no apartments back there. We're proposing 2 now, and that to me says at least 4 more cars that have to go somewhere, and we all know there's a parking issue now. So maybe we can address that in some way. As far as access is concerned, there are 2 alleys, one on each side of their new proposed building. I'm not sure who actually owns those, but they're interchangeably used by everybody again. Except that they're not. Everybody goes around the back and up the gravel drive. So that's more wear and tear on the gravel drive that I hope we can address in some way. And really, I just have a quick note from the owners of the antique shop who could not be here due to illness. They just wanted to restate the parking issue and note that on-street parking should be left for businesses and not for tenants of the existing buildings or their guests. That's directly from them. That's not me. That is all.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else like to speak? Public comment? All right, we're into commission questions and discussion. Again, this will be heard later on in the agenda. Is there anything you would like to ask to the applicant or staff? We're going to go ahead and close this public hearing. Is that the way we're doing this? Okay, we're going to go ahead and close this public hearing. Thank you. We'll see you here shortly. All right, next item on the agenda is a public hearing for rezoning Gateway District North PCD Planned Commercial District, Sunbury Holdings Company LLC. The applicant is requesting the rezoning of parcel number 417-240-02-009-000 and approval of associated development plan. And before we go ahead and get started, I'll hand it over to Mr. Whitney one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Once again, as we indicated in the prior public hearing, this is a public hearing on the rezoning Gateway District North PCD Sunbury Holdings Company LLC. Again, it's a public hearing. A stenographer is recording everything that we're saying. So to the extent anyone in here, including community members, wishes to offer any comment, we'd ask you that you stand up and get sworn in at this time. Once again, when the mayor so directs, please come up to the lectern, speak slowly and clearly into the microphone, speak just at one time to make sure we can get everything taken down cleanly for the record. So with that, I will allow the stenographer to swear in anyone that may offer comment on this rezoning application.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. And Mr. Mayor, as before, I have exhibits to admit into the record. I have marked as Exhibit A, 3-page document, which is the application submitted by the applicant, 3 pages, Exhibit A. Exhibit B is the rezoning, the development plan. The 4 phases of that, or 4 different sections of that, including exhibits that was submitted by the applicant with their application. It's 67 pages. The development plan and development text, Exhibit B. Exhibit C is the public hearing notice and the proof of mailing to affected property owners, 3 pages, Exhibit C. And Exhibit D is 11-page document, which is the staff report, which was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Exhibit D, 11 pages. With that, I will look to admit those into the record.
Accept. Thank you. All right. First up on this particular public hearing is applicant presentation. Mr. Shrem, welcome back. If you can state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Is this working? Yeah. Jim Shrem, 2045 Upper Chelsea Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43221. And I'm with Wills Creek. I'm here on behalf of Sunbury Holding Company, the owner of the 58-acre plus minus tract of the subject zoning hearing. Thank you for having us back. Thank you for sitting through our long presentation last week as we kind of unveiled, went back in time, where we've been over the last 10 years and where we are today. I apologize for not wearing a sports coat, but it's really hot today. We are, just to remind everyone, in the process, we're in this entitlement middle piece here. So if this PCD is adopted, then there's still another piece of the process. We're really here to hear you all. We gave, I think, a pretty exhaustive presentation last time. We've submitted the deck to the city. I have just, if you're on the second page, just a quick refresher, an overview. Maybe Alex, or if you can, we said, just kind of going back where we are, we've been working with the city leadership staff, planning commission for the last 12 months. Commissioner Long and Commissioner Stotterman have worked with us, come to the city offices, and we've gone through and done a page flip and asked some really good technical questions. And I think Commissioner Long twice, maybe 3 times. So we've really tried to, do a deep dive into the technical issues to date. This PCD is replacing the old PCD. It was passed in 2015, 2016. All of the proposed uses, sorry, I'm pretty short, I'm going to lower this, are primary and secondary permitted uses in the land plan, in the city's master plan, and we've designated gateway mixed use and gateway residential. We're in a candy stripe zone. It can be either one. The PCD has higher streetscape, landscape, signage, and aesthetic standards than the existing PCD. We talked last month, this is the exact same street standard for Sunbury Parkway that's established from New Albany, and all of its arterials that extend out from the village of New Albany. We've decreased the amount of allowable retail space in the PCD, this PCD, over what was passed in 2015. And we've adhered to, my spectacles on because I can't see, we've adhered to these guiding principles. attract a catalytic use. That, this is right out of the master plan, that will benefit from proximity to the highway, as stated in the master plan. While not in this 58 acres, I think we talked last time, is that we did sell the 27 acres west of Wilson Road to Ohio Health for medical campus. And the second bullet point is the first listed use in terms of focused targeted uses in the master plan is medical. So we feel like we're right on track with the city's visioning for this process. Set an elevated streetscape, we just talked about that. Transition from the existing land uses that are already established in Berkshire Township to our north with, I think it's the district, the district by Champion, and the transition from the outlet mall to our northwest. And keep that in context of height, scale, and mass in those uses. And those uses kind of having a lower standard, architectural standard than what we have, what we will have, if this is passed. Work within the existing site geometry. We talked about that in our last presentation, that it's long and narrow, topographic and utility easement constraints. And use of best practices for stormwater management design, regional stormwater detention basin, while not an actual land use component of our standards, it's a really important component of the geometry and making sure there's a, an efficiently developed site for the surrounding area. With that, that's the recap of what we discussed last time. I'll turn it over to the commissioners for any questions or comments.
We're gonna go to the staff report and public comment, and we'll come back. Alex?
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. As the applicant noted, they've been meeting with city administration and then some members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council to work through some of the aspects of the project before they brought it here to the commission. A lot of the uses listed are, and the project as a whole is higher intensity than our current zoning ordinance, but the proposal does line up very well with the Sunbury Parkway plan, as the Parkway plan was adopted after our zoning ordinances were, and this was one of the planned uses for it. The proposal does have a mixture of commercial, residential, hospitality, office, and open space uses listed, excuse me. The applicant does list uses in the development text, but also provides that that isn't limiting the uses and that other uses could be developed in accordance with the approved future development plan. One of the notes I had was this use of the phrase approved future development plan. I just wanted some clarity on that. Is that referencing the commercial site plans that each individual tenant will come up with? There's not going to be, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify.
Yeah. As a user comes forward, a sub-user comes forward,
Okay.
that references their final development plan.
Gotcha. I would like to, if possible, could you guys make note of that and change that phrasing to single tenant commercial site plans or some reference to our major commercial site plan process? And I can email you that language if that's beneficial as well.
Yeah.
We just don't want to confuse the verbiage for future development plan that's listed in our code is this submittal that you guys are doing now. So we didn't want it to sound like you guys were bringing an amended plan back to this body every time. That'll be a separate process. Aside from that, the development text includes architectural standards that are above what our current zoning requires. As Mr. Schrimsch said, the access locations can be changed with Sunbury Parkway's finalized design. As the parkway is still years out, I'd imagine at this point, everything's going to be contingent on final engineering. So if you guys are okay with the proposed number of accesses for the lot, that would be fine. And then if they're not feasible for engineering, that can change them, but that would allow the 3 access points on Sunbury Parkway, for example. The development text does require 15% open space, which includes the stormwater facilities as well. And that is in an 11-acre space that also includes green space and trails. The parking ratios proposed have been consistent with previous commission discussion. And looking at them, there was nothing that stood out as being underparked. Most of them are close to or aligned with standards that are typically used today in development submissions. And then as this whole rezoning and the development plan and text do align with our Sunbury Parkway master plan, staff did recommend it for approval as well. So do you guys have any questions for me?
No questions. If anybody from the public that would like to speak? All right. Commission comments, questions? All right, we're gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. See you back here shortly. Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda, Majors Commercial Site Plan, that's 37 East Granville Street. The applicant is requesting approval of a major commercial site plan for construction. Thank you, Sarah. Construction of a two-story mixed-use building, including 3 commercial uses and 2 residential uses. Now we're into the major commercial site plan, and we are going to go to the conditional use after this. So there are 2 different items on the agenda. You're looking for 2 different recommendations or approvals. But I'm going to try to focus in on the major commercial site plan. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That totally works.
Let's roll.
Yeah. Yeah, I can walk you through the project again too. Obviously, it's pretty much the same as you heard last time. So back to the site plan, now we're kind of going through everything, but once again, commercial in front, apartments in the back, and then in the rear, full parcel parking. If you want to scroll down a little bit, this is kind of the life safety plan. Keep scrolling. This is basement. This is obviously what you can see on site right now. So you can see the light rays are existing. We're really trying to keep this one foundation as possible and build up from there. And then this will be our tentative first floor plan. So you can see here, this is one tenant space, and that's going to serve Ellie or Brad, and then another one here. So this will be Brad's office. So both facing the street, both right on the square. And then as you come around the corner, this is where the apartments will be in the rear. So we kind of already talked about those. There's a pretty clear 2-hour wall between them, and then the apartments have access from the back. And then when we go up to the second floor, right now we have an open tenant space, so that is to be determined who will be in that space. And then again, we have the same equipment on the rear, also access from the back via that external stairs. And then we have a pretty simple roof plan, and then here's some kind of representatives. This is what we talked about a lot last time, and a mix of how we kind of honor what's going on in the square, how we update it, how we make sure that this thing has presence on the street and kind of is forward looking for what we want the square to look like. I know you guys had mentioned, you guys had mentioned a few different styles that we were referencing, one of them being the federal style, so we kind of looked into those elements, and obviously I have some images of the building that we're in right now. So and that's a fully brick building, so there are some different kind of proportions, materiality we're dealing with, but there's a list here of elements that we're really trying to replicate. The first is symmetrical front facades. That's a big part of this style. We have the 2-story front porch, so you can see that we're really trying to get some scale on the front, and then we are referencing this is the Myers Inn across the street, but we can see what we're doing differently. It's really the scale of this. One thing I always add is always the height. So we're doing 2 stories, which is significant already with 1 story before, but the floor to floor is about 10 feet. So we're getting a lot of scale, which is what happens in this building. Essentially, like, this building is very elongated. So we're trying to do that. Simplified classical elements. So it's pretty minimal with a good amount of detail. So we're trying to replicate what this building is doing. Low pitched roof versus the portion that we talked about with the higher proportions. Simplified horizontal siding, that's something that's very common in that time period, so we're updating that. We'll also, I can show you the next page when we get there, but we're also bringing in some stone, which I think will be a nice feature. And then, yeah, I guess overall, really what we're trying to do is kind of marry some of the elements that we like about this building and what we think is appropriate for being else. So if you can go to the next page, thank you. Here is what we're proposing. So basically 2-story porch in the front, and then the structure in the back. We're trying to add some detail with the dormer on the top. Again, like the proportions are very elongated, and all of the focus, it really wants a lot of focus on the square. Like a lot of our detailing are happening right on the face. So we also have a list of materials we're doing, and actually that's something Alex had mentioned. We list composite siding here. So right now we're looking at a mix between LP siding, which is wood, or a hardy board, which is cement stitches, and both of those fit within your development standards. So right now we're kind of in the pricing process with contractors, but both have a very similar look. and a feel, and they're both, like real materials. When you get up close, they will feel nice. So we haven't fully selected one because they're still talking to contractors and kind of everyone has preferences on that, but Kelly Greg already have purchased some stone that will be like a water table around the base of the building, and that's actually going, the full perimeter, so I think it'll really feel whole as you see the building to the corner. And then we're adding in some warmer things with a little bit of cedar, and then we want to get lanterns. So I think the front of this will be very, developed and very warm. So these are just side elevations. Again, you can see the stone is going to wrap the corner. And I think we're just not doing it in the back based on what we have. And then, so yeah, really the front is where we're focusing, anything that's looking out on the square. Notice some sections, so you can see our taller ceiling heights here. Oh, do I do that?
Wow. I know apartment sounds heavy, especially I know the parking concern, but like I said, my boys, when they come home, that there's gonna be one that's vacant 9, 10, 11 months of the year, so that's just gonna be empty, no parking lot spaces are required for that.
It's a lot of your customers, they assume park.
Yeah.
Street, come in, yeah. So, yeah, a lot of that's my parking hours right up front of the building.
Thank you for the overview. We're gonna have Alex go through the staff report and then we may want to engage in some dialogue with you. Thank you. Alex?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So the site plan generally complies with our C3 development standards. As I mentioned during the conditional use, there's no minimum parking requirement for the C3 district, so 0 parking spots would comply. But with the apartments in the back, using that R4 or R5 zoning district text, it would require 2 parking spots per. They still hit that with the 7 that they are proposing. There is a requirement for a 6-foot wall or fence when next to residential districts. They do have a residential district directly to the south that already has an existing 6-foot fence. So they'd be using that fence for the requirement of this, and they would have a landscape area with 2 trees in it as well to provide better screening. Additionally, there is a trash area back in the, I believe it's in the southeast corner behind, close to the entrances of the apartments. I didn't notice any screening shown on the plan for that too, but that would need to be screened as well and just blended. Yeah, yep. And then as the applicant mentioned, the site plan listed composite siding, but didn't have a material. I reached out to them and they said it would be natural materials, which would comply with our code. So just verifying that was a concern of mine as well. And then additionally, if you have 6 or more parking spots proposed, there is a lighting plan required that the applicant didn't know, but I reached out to them and they noted that they would comply with that and have that before the final approval. And then with that, staff would recommend approval for the project contingent on the submission of the lighting plan, any engineering review, and then the approval of the associated apartment variance and the conditional use variance, as all of these are tied together with the site plan that has the 875 square foot apartment. It's approval of all of them or none of them, because with the approval of the major commercial site plan, we would need the 875 square foot apartments to comply with the site plan. So with approval of the site plan and the conditional use, we would also still need the approval of the variance to allow for the 875 square foot apartments. And that's all I
Thank
know.
you. Thank you. I'll go ahead and get started. I think the plan is really well done. I think the architecture and the choices that you made, really well done. Nice job on the materials. Glad you were able to add density. Apartment is not heavy, in my opinion, especially 875 square feet and there's 2 of them. I think we already got the answer on the parking. There's really no requirement that the C4 zoning requires that. And you're still gonna have to go through the conditional use to make sure that the square footage fits. I assume that the BZA is going.
You say conditional use of the variance. You guys have the conditional use.
Sorry. The variance for the 875 square foot. I guess I would assume that the BZA is gonna see this favorably, especially.
It's still a lot of space for people,
Sure.
like it's not big at all.
Yeah.
It's very good size.
I don't have any concerns with that.
But yeah, it's a good, I mean, it's a giant island, figure together. It's a pretty simple standard.
Right. I know we heard the concern for Mr. Bennett earlier about drainage. That's not an issue exclusively for you to solve. I think that's probably something that all the property owners, including the city that we need to probably come together and figure out what that's gonna look like. I assume you're gonna blacktop it, but maybe we can have some discussions about how we can work together to address some of the like combined concerns.
Big blacktop is required, blacktop or concrete, don't like the two requirements, so we didn't propose like leaving gravel because of that reason, so.
It's fair.
I mean, it's wise, it's a lot better.
Yeah, so from my perspective, it meets all the code requirements and enhances the square, which is a good thing. So I'll open it up to anybody else's comments.
I thought you did a great job too. These are all minor, but I think add to the aesthetics, both interior and exterior. On the outside, on the sides, I think there needs to be an architectural feature on the side, not just plain, whether it's you carry over the shutters or you put some type of material. I just think it needs to be something because it's a 2-story building now and it's going to be very visible and it needs to pop itself. The other thing is as a tenant in your place, the first story is probably not the issue, but I think the second story, the eaves or an awning or something over the door when it's raining or storming and everything, I think it's a safety issue too. I think that should be included.
A small kind of like pitched awning to match the slope through, so kind of the same proportions of the dormer over that third entry. So that's something where you're.
That's your third entry, but the second story apartment doesn't have anything. I saw it on the commercial, and the first floor, if I'm seeing it right, probably has the staircase. But the second story doesn't really have, and the eave doesn't look like it's sufficient enough to cover. Yeah, there's a lot of options. I just think it needs to have, I've lived in houses and apartments and that's in bad weather. That's just a nightmare.
And our transom windows alongside, I don't know if you saw that on here, so it's not just gonna be a plain slated side, like you're gonna.
Yeah, but just something I think would make it, since it's so visible and it's second story and you're gonna be able to see it from multiple directions. The other thing is, storage in your long-term apartment. I liked the layout. I looked at the closets and everything, but I think maybe you don't need to do it in the apartment where it's your family's going to use it, but I think a little bit more storage is needed in the long-term apartment. I didn't notice a pathway to your second story. Did I just miss it? Or I couldn't tell from the street to the second entrance to go up to the second story commercial?
Along the alley walkway.
So there is a walkway, or are they gonna be just walking in the alley?
Well, it will be newly paved and updated, but it is the driveway, yeah,
There will be a dry surface and everything?
yes.
Okay,
And then it will, because like you said, we talked about this last time, I actually added that covering, so I think it will actually look more like you know where you're going because of that awning there.
Mhm.
And I do think it depends on the tenant, like there are some front facing business tenants, but we don't know what that's going to be. Having a little more privacy could be a benefit to the tenant as well. I don't know what the tenant will be.
And we're open to suggestions. We're gonna have a nice big space up there with high ceilings. I mean, we are open to suggestions, but we've got a lot of people wanting a golf simulator. That's what we've been hearing.
not sure a second story would be. The only thing that I would, and this is kind of a want, not a need. When you go into apartments and you're going to have a long-term tenant, having a space where they could put a grill or some outdoor furniture, maybe not a lot, a stool or even a bike or something, that's something that I would look at too.
Yeah, I also mentioned we'll have to screen some of the trash that's in the corner, but because of that, we'll probably have some sort of concrete pad we can look at, possibly like parking, or that could be a place for someone to put a grill, something like that. And because of the way the stairs are constructed, I'm sure they could tuck something underneath the stair as like, the grill while it's away or something like that too, so. There's some options we can work on there.
Back, thank you.
What do you have planned for your commercial signage on the front of the building? Do you have a plan?
First, we have our sign out front, but it doesn't sound like people really like our.
Oh, is that going away as part of your plan?
Grandfathered in. I like my sign there. My husband's okay with taking it down.
Okay, so you're on the fence which way you're going
Yeah.
as of right now?
I mean, it's, fine, but being
Okay.
gone. Even though it's not in the way of anything.
Thank you, by the way.
It's actually.
Thank you. I mean, just for, you know,
Flexible as we can, as you guys can see, we're putting this beautiful, expensive building. And when I hear you talking about the side features, all I'm hearing about is, the ching in my head going, oh my God. Because we did not want to be here doing this right now. We want our little blue building that we had that was perfect. And thank God we're here to talk about it, because we were there when the roof collapsed. So now I think what we're trying to accomplish is gonna be a beautiful addition to the square. I definitely don't want, I want to accommodate the long-term renter, but I also don't want the type of renter that's going to be bringing all the junk that's gonna sit outside. I don't want that. So I don't want to accommodate someone that wants to be here for 10 years. I'm thinking maybe older. I've already got someone in mind and they actually work here, and she's begging me for the space. Yeah, perfect. So I'm kind of planning it with that person in mind. Yeah.
I also realized you're intending to build on the existing foundation from the previous building, so that's pretty much set where it's at. This building sticks out a lot further than the two adjacent buildings for sure. Is either one of the buildings, the side buildings or this building's within the setback? Do we know? Are we grandfathering in a new building onto a?
I can, you probably take a stab at that.
Go ahead. I can
Let me know.
jump in on this.
I think they're actually, compared to where their old building was and the staircase for their old building, they're actually taking, I think, a few feet back, right? 3 feet back. But they are 4 feet into the right of way. I don't know that it's substantial, but they are going into the right of way a little bit. And I think that's because they are trying to use the existing pad.
We are trying to use the existing foundation and then have the surveyor come out, basically found out that the corner of the existing foundation, which you can see down there behind where their front porch used to be, it's about 1'2" setback. So in order to have a porch and reuse that existing foundation, we need to encroach past the property line, and that's kind of what we talked about last time. But what we are doing, because we want a zero threshold entry for ADA accessibility, we're getting rid of that full concrete pad which is out there now, taking away the 2 steps which we no longer need, so we're gaining 2 feet back from where we even were before. And then what we did see is when you're standing on the sidewalk, those 2 steps right now are right at the sidewalk line, like right where the 5-foot sidewalk begins. So now we'll be back even further than that. And that 5-foot sidewalk is pretty much held by the adjacent properties, either by kind of their like front yard shopping type things, or by the fence they have, I think for District 13 and like the outdoor seating. So like we'll really be holding the front property, which I think is actually appropriate for the commercial nature and like being on the street. I believe if we step back, it'll look a little bit strange, like we are stepping back on the street. So
Yeah, so I mean, I've said it in maybe a different way, like District 13, their patio area outside, the antique store where they sell antiques in their property, but like, basically it could be sidewalk or entryway, and then where the coffee shop has tables and things. I mean, it's in line with that, I guess is what I'm saying. It wouldn't get more narrow in terms of walking space or anything like that. Exactly.
Linear, and it's gonna be nice. I hate giving up my steps. I really did. I like my steps.
Yeah.
People sat there for parades. You guys
Yeah.
saw it. I actually
Yeah.
there on the stairs.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
kind of sad about losing it, but again, we're trying to be compromising.
and they'll still be able to sit, they'll still be on the porch, which is this area here, looking out over the school.
It's a good call out.
The last thing that I wanted to bring up, and it goes back to something we've already touched on, but I intended to answer my own question by going over there. There's a lot of things that happen on the square that shut down Granville Street for days, things that all the different things where there would be no front access to that driveway, especially now that there's going to be a resident living and needing to get in and out for multiple times. And I already heard that the back access routes are each privately owned.
Yes.
correct? So it does seem like the city needs to have some type of position on making it so that that resident can get into their residence when these events are going on and they're not restricted. I don't want there to be a conflict down the road where the resident says, hey, I need to get to my place of residence and my access route is through the front of the building. I can't go through private property to get to my parking spot. It does seem like there's enough things going on that we would want to make sure we cover this now. Not their issue necessarily as much as it is the city's issue, whether it's dealing with the blacktop and the gravel and the storm drain potential issues for residents, but for access to get to the parking. So it may take a little research, but it does seem like we're creating a new parking location that's going to have increased access at all hours rather than just business hours.
I mean, one potential option is, I mean, since this is a recommendation, correct?
Yes, the major commercial
As
sector.
a recommendation to city council, I mean, request that all of city council look at the broader scope of this, not as a contingency of approval
No,
here,
right.
but as a valid concern. You brought up Granville Street. We do shut down Granville Street for numerous events, food trucks, whatever it is, but that's a really good example where, I mean, I've always thought like perfect world, you know, all the property owners in the city get together and we figure it out. Doesn't always, it's not that easy all the time. So we do need to figure out the stormwater. We do need to figure out that through access there. It is an important, you know, bypass in emergency situations. Great. It's good feedback. Anything else? No. Mr.
So
Paul?
yeah, you guys, we don't have a lighting plan just yet for the lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think once we hit 6 parking spaces, we're required to have it, and I didn't know that, so we'll work on that.
Okay, so do we have, are there specific requirements? I would assume there are for, the R4, R5 scenario. Is that what would be applicable in this?
Are you asking for the parking requirements are pulled from R4, R5? The lighting plan requirements are in their own section in the zoning ordinance. I can send those over to you guys so you have them as well. But the requirement for the lighting plan is 6+ spaces and they have 7. So they're just hitting that threshold of it.
Okay.
I mean, the spirit of that, the code is, you know, try to minimize light bleed, make sure that it's lit enough where if you're getting out of your car, you're not tripping and falling, that type of thing.
Yeah, that's where my concern is, just to make sure that it's, you know, what standard does it need to follow? Is it more of a commercial standard or a residential? If it's residential,
What you're asking.
that's great, because I think it should be, but what does that actually look like for the light? If it's, you know, down lighting is probably back
Yeah.
in that area, especially with the
I know-
residents behind.
I think this would fall more under the commercial just because the main primary site is commercial. So I think that's the code we'll follow. I know that our code calls out downward lighting in commercial districts. So I think we'd follow that and just try to prevent it from going into the apartments itself, but then going over into that back neighbor to the south, their yard as well. With the front being commercial, I don't think there's too much concern there, but definitely looking at it from the residential on the rear side.
Yeah, I don't think the concern from my standpoint is on the front. It's just on the rear.
Yep.
Making sure that there's some appropriate lighting for the residents versus commercial lighting.
And we can double check that too. Once the site plan's done, I'll send you over. I'll make sure if there's anything specific to residential versus commercial that I highlight that out when I send it to you guys. But if not, it'll just be all lumped under that same lighting plan as per code.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? I'll make a motion to approve with a contingency on the approved light plan. That we have engineering or staff review that prior to city council. What else? Also, I'd like for city council to look at the ingress egress issue in the back alley as it aligns with the municipal building, the coffee shop, antique shop, District 13, Chamber of Commerce. Ensure that when we do shut down that road, now that we have residents that will be dependent on in and out flow, they have that. Make a motion.
And then do you want to on condition on the variance approval as well? We'll need and the conditional use.
We need 2 more conditions.
Yeah, on the conditional use that we're gonna hear in just a minute and on BZA's variance request. Okay, well,
Do we need to add something about this city meeting about the stormwater, or is that just side?
I think that's,
Engineers review.
yeah, I think that's I don't know if we're making that contingent on this, but yeah.
Okay. I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Miller. Discussion? Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
4 yeas, motion approved.
All right, next item on the agenda is the conditional use for 37 East Granville Street. We heard in the public hearing what this is. We're not gonna make you go back through this. We understand what you're asking for. You're asking for apartments and in this commercial structure. So are there any questions or comments?
What was the variant? Was there only one variance for size? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the variance is to reduce the size from 1,020 square feet to 875 square feet per unit.
That's actually not like our correct decision. I mean,
Yeah, no,
context, but it's not, we're not saying.
no, yes, it'll go to
Apartments
the,
approved at this square footage. We're just saying apartments are permitted in this building.
yes, that is correct.
Make a motion.
This one should also be contingent upon the variant. That's
Contingent upon the variance. Sorry.
I'll second.
Second.
I do have one question for staff
Go
before
ahead.
we go. Let's say down the road, let's say 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, the apartments aren't going well. They decide they don't want apartments. What is the process to change them back into a commercial?
They would need to submit a certificate of use application, which pretty much just tells the city that they're changing the use involved. We'll check that versus our permitted uses, or if it was another conditional use, it would have to come back here. And the same thing would happen if they decide they wanted to sell the property, the conditional use would be void at that point. So if someone else came in and bought the property, that would just be empty space. They'd still have to come back in for a conditional use for those apartments as well.
So let's say they sold it. How would the new owner know they needed to come back in? Would that be, is that attached to the property or?
It's a good question. We can do research on that unless you have an answer.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head. We'd have to research that.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
4 yeas, motion approved.
Just a couple more approvals and you'll be there. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is rezoning Gateway District North PCD Sunbury Holdings Company LLC. And we can call the applicant up and I think we can just get right into the discussion.
May I have one of those waters on that?
Oh, please, yeah. Here. Come on. If
Pretty much didn't think I was rushing the bench.
No. anybody else would like a water, there's water up here. Before we get started, do you have anything additional for us that maybe you did not cover?
I really don't. I think there was one point about access points that Alex brought up, which is he is 100% correct that what we're showing right now as potential access points between Wilson Road and Galena Road on the north side of Sunbury Parkway are totally TBD by final engineering and traffic studies. And what we're requesting is based on what ODOT and the county have recommended in their comprehensive studies for the interchange, which is, I think it's one full service signalized and then 2 different right in, right outs on the westbound. So if you're on the future Sunbury Parkway coming from the city going to the highway, there would be 2 right in, right outs. And then there would be only one full service interchange in that 4,000 or 6,000, 5,000 feet. The access points that are shown schematically on the Wilson Road side of the site were determined and located by an MS Consultants traffic engineering study. So those are, I mean, they're schematic. This is not a scale drawing, but we know that's very close. We have the one full service intersection at the northern boundary, basically between Berkshire Township and the Berkshire Township Sunbury line and Wilson Road. So that will be the only full service curb cut we have on Wilson Road. And then we have one right in, right out set at some distance. I think it's 200 something feet. And all of those dimensions were determined by the MS traffic study done in consultation with the county engineer's office and, I think Fort Carlos with CT Engineering. So that was the only thing that I wanted to add in terms of traffic. With that, we're open for questions. And Alex, if you just maybe bring up, and we'll just kind of be a Luddite here, maybe, I don't know, what's most helpful to the commissioners, and this, on this good site plan to have for reference at this point?
Sure, that works.
Okay. All right, that's all I have.
Okay.
I just have a few minor little points. I liked, cause I know this is very high level, just kind of getting some concepts and everything. I liked the different color bricks, you know, that they're similar but not exactly the same in the colors.
Okay.
But I want to be very careful because I don't want to look like New Albany, because it was a red brick and we just went with a darker gray. I want to make sure that when we get to the planning of the buildings, that we're not looking like another cookie cutter.
Stepford Wives
Yes,
monotony.
yes. I want to be very careful about that.
So I think that's an excellent point. And I'll need my experts to correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm seldom in doubt, but not often right. But with the buildings, each building brick can be selected in the final development plan. The bricks that are shown as options for the signage and the exterior improvements, even those, there's latitude built into the PCD for planning commission and council to change them. So those are the red bricks that we've shown. We tried to tie into this brick, but there's even flexibility built in, not for us, but at the city's discretion, when those improvements actually go to get built, if it's something happens and it's delayed, and so we want, something that's more of a buff. So there's flexibility in that.
I just want to make sure that I don't want to go down that path. I want us to be different.
And we don't either.
Okay.
No.
Another one was, it's kind of a sore spot with me, those little triangles in the access areas where you're going in and out. Pork chops, that's the right word, where they're just grass. Those I find in most places end up just being weeds because they don't grow well. So if you could go do something else.
So these little, where we have it right in, right out.
Yes.
With this little triangle pork chop, rather than being grass, you'd like to see this hardscape brick or concrete, something where it doesn't, it's low maintenance that ties into the hardscape.
Right. I just think that the grass, when they put it in pork chops in the grass, it just becomes weed and it just detracts.
The guy who landscape forget to mow. They mow everything else and they forget that.
Yes, or they fertilize everything else or put weed killer and they ignore that.
Got
it. I also know, since we're just at the very high level, I liked the concept of the zones that you were doing, but I know we're not quite there, but when we're going to the next stop and we're trying to get between the buildings, what the pathways and, a bench or, some rest areas, how that's going to look. I want to make sure that we follow that path down the road too.
So let me say it back to you so make sure I understand. As we could have, we could come in and say we want to do a little retail, center. When we do that, and then there's a little corner spot left on Wilson Road, you want to make sure that the transition between those site-specific development plans have pedestrian, they're interconnected and that they relate to each other, with whether that's be a resting feature, whether it be connectivity of the walkway, that they're not islands unto themselves.
Right.
Okay.
A perfect example is one of the buildings is an office building and then you've got your shops.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to walk through the cars to get to the shop or the restaurant and everything. I should have a safe way to get there without dodging cars.
I totally agree with that. And we will, that is a final development plan issue. But we will, when we're back, we'll be sure that's addressed at that phase.
Okay.
And I agree with you in terms of design concepts and the way that it lives, the built environment lives and works. Good feedback. Thank you. Anything else?
That's all for me right now.
Thank you.
Talk to me about the signage a little bit more. So you had some information in the packet about the signage. Can you just walk us through?
Yeah, sure. Can we go to Alex? I think we've got some detach here.
Yes.
Not so much the city of Sunbury welcome.
No, you're done with the site signage and, signage is always a super important thing. So yeah, but stopping here, that is city, that's your brand. And it will say coming into Sunbury and it will say something nice about, oh, you're leaving. Thanks for seeing us or whatever the city wants. Let's scroll, keep going. So this here, and Greg, I may have you also hop in here if I start floundering. This is a joint identification ground sign. So let me see, we are on, this would be Sunbury Parkway, the north side. And we start here with the pavement, you come up to the curb, and you come to the right of way. So that's the end of kind of the city's property. And in the right of way is this 11-foot mixed use path. It is double tree lawn, which if you see on Sunbury Parkway has a 25-foot tree lawn. So that's back, this relates to signage in terms of context and relevance. Then back from that, you have a joint identification sign. That's a private sign. So that's not in this right of way. It's on private land. And it has it'll have a masonry or masonry pediment. And then it's not a blade, but basically the sign itself. And then behind that is a 4-rail horse fence. And then another tree line. This sign, if we go up, there are, what are we allowed to have on the joint identification signs? So these are for, if you think here, if you had a Starbucks next to a Chase Bank, that joint identification sign could have Starbucks and Chase Bank on it. These signage standards are based off of the revised Westerville standards. Is that correct? Currently? And they are, I believe, also match what the New Albany standards are on Johnstown Road. So enough signage to be visible, but not enough signage to be obnoxious. So that's the joint signage, joint identification ground signage. Then if you go down, Alex, keep going down. We may have to put the actual application. We'll have to put the actual application. If we'll start on Wilson Road, there's project signage. Correct me, Greg, if I'm wrong, or it's not the right term. Joint identification signs. Let's pull up the application and go to the. Oh. Am I going in the right direction?
Yes.
To get.
Yeah, there's an image in this document that I had a couple questions on. I think it was multiple.
It was the vertical blade. Okay. Here's ground pediment joint signage. Now let's go down. I think that's the one we covered. I think you're thinking of, go to the next page, 47, please.
This one.
Yeah.
So this isn't digital, correct?
No. None of these are digital. We considered digital and writing that in. Actually, we wrote it in because we feel like that's the direction of signage in the future, but we eliminated it after pretty extensive discussions. We're allowed in this PCD one fuel station on all 58 acres. So we've really, and I agree with that, restricted that down. And the only digital signage allowed is pricing signage for that one fuel station. So this is an example here. It just shows you could have 4 tenants or 4 users on this one sign. And I think these are similar, David Fisher, in size and scale to what Kroger has now and what the current code is. So we're not looking to we're not looking to set any precedent going up from your current signage codes. There's another blade sign or tower sign. I call it a tower sign. Alex, this here. You know, these are big, I don't know, go down here so I can see what we've named it. This is a different style of joint identification sign, but this is where you might have for multiple users for the entire project. Maybe just one at the very west end of Sunbury Parkway, and then one down at the full service intersection going east towards Galena, and maybe one at some point on Wilson Road. Is that, sorry, go ahead.
I'll just say it. Yeah. What we're trying to do here is create a family of signage options for us. We're not telling you which ones are going where today, but each one of these joint identification signage exists outside of your current code signage. So all of your current code signage will remain permitted. These elements become part of the streetscape, what you see from the public right of ways. So in this toolbox, this probably occurs more at an entrance to a major entrance into the site or the sub areas, whereas the smaller blade signs might be as you're driving along through multiple properties along there. So it's just giving us those options, trying to establish the character and the materials of what you're going to experience of that streetscape. So these are very integral to the streetscape that you're going to see, not just a separate signage package. We wanted to bring that in as part of the elements that create the brand for this corridor.
Can I ask a question on that? I still don't understand the signage divergence. I don't understand what are you diverging away from? Like, what does our code say that you're?
What we're doing is we're taking it out of your code requirements. And if you notice on page 18 of the text is where we deal with all signage aspects. And Jim just addressed the signage along roadways, multiple users. I think most importantly for you tonight is our number two, which is that each time, number two, each time a project comes in for approval, a signage package is presented to you for approval in connection with that particular development. So we're taking it out of your code, but we're saying that each one must come in and present its sign package in connection with its development. And we also, there's some other limitations, for example, on subdivision development signs, there are maximum 3 in sub-area A, not exceeding 32 square feet. And in the sub-area B, there are maximum 2 signs, not exceeding 32 square feet. And we also provided for digital signage for fuel stations, the typical, how much is gas today, which of course is changing quite often these days. So, and that's why we took it out of your code, so the signage comes in as a part of each application for development, and the person proposing that development must support their sign package with these requirements.
Where's the language that it limits it to the fuel station, the digital signage? Where's the language?
It's on page 18. It says in number 3, number 1, digital pricing signs are permitted. I think we could limit that to fuel stations.
Digital pricing signs, we should say digital pricing signs for fuel station. For the fuel station, meaning just the advertisement of how much per gallon is.
So I think we would, when we get there, I think we would want a contingency that it would be 1 per the district, right? That's what.
Yeah, it's one fuel station.
Right.
That's fine. Yeah, but it's limited. If our goal is to have it for fuel stations, not other users.
Understood. Okay, thanks.
As far as the development goes as a whole, is there a plan in which other phases to sub area A where the businesses will be developed?
So there is not, and if we go back to our last presentation, the PCD puts in the infrastructure of here are the permitted uses and call it the stennis or the structure of what can be done. The market can't tell us what it wants right now because nobody knows what can or can't be done. And that's why the final development plan is the gatekeeper. But this is the way, in reality, if you take all the words out of it, in reality, here's what will happen. Sub-area A will develop first. That's why we broke the site down into sub-area A and sub-area B. Sub-area B cannot be developed without a regional sanitary sewer lift station to service the eastern 1/3 of our property and approximately the eastern 1/3 of the property to our south. So we think that sub-area A will develop in the near term. We would think that the first phase of sub-area A would most likely be there is only physical room for 3 out parcels on Wilson Road. So this will not be a great big string of out parcels. We think what will happen first is the development of Wilson Road, potentially, and then the development of the inboard project to that between basically those buildings and the pond. It is possible that I don't know, roughly 16 acres between what could be out parcels on Wilson Road and the pond could be 3 or 4 phases. It could be, if the hospital came and said, you know what, we're going to get ahead of the market and we're going to build a 60,000-foot oncology building up here. If that happened, we would probably have 2 hotel users come to us pretty quickly and say, oh, there's a satellite oncology treatment center for Ohio Health. We want to have a Marriott Residence Inn near that facility. So that's what could determine the uses. If a grocery store like a Meijer said, we have a hole in the market, we're in Westerville, we're in Delaware on the eastern side, we want to come in and take the whole field, that could happen. So, we really see the construction of the project as soon as the APCD is passed, and we can tell people what they can do roughly, and as soon as the interchange is completed, which we think is December 2026, serious concepts of plans can come forth, and that will be an iterative process. Like, what we'll do is we'll take all these users and we'll look at them, we'll look at what's allowed in the plan, and we'll call Alex and Sean and Daryl, and we'll come in and we'll sit down and say, what do you guys think about this? And so that's kind of the process. But what we put forth in that timeline, I thought was, we think that sub-area A will develop between now or 9 months from now. I mean, if somebody came forward today and said, we want, to go, let's say if this was passed, and it'd be 12 months before they could get through the final development process. So we think the development of everything west of the detention pond is late 2007 to 2030. That comes in, and then there's probably a lull. And there's a lull until the county, the city, we all figure out how we're going to, what I'm going to call sewer the no man's land. Everything west of Galena Road to I-71, the city basically the county treats, and there's an inter-service sanitary sewer agreement. Everything east of Galena Road, the city treats. And that's really the driving factor, and working with the county and their capacity. And the lift station is really expensive, so you can't do our neighbors here, to the north, at the east side, along Galena Road. There's really got to be some demand and scale. I mean, the county sanitary engineer's office has said, we're not, going to sign off on a regional lift station if it's just that little 15 or 10 acres we have left over on the
Can I jump
east.
in real quick?
Yes, sir.
Just to answer, there's really 2 types of rezoning requests that we get on planning and zoning. One is you have a user in hand, and the other is you're looking to proactively rezone and then market. This is a proactive rezoning and market, also known as the entitlement process we talked about. And our job on that is to do a couple things. Number one, try to follow the master plan. They've done that. Also, when you're taking into account all the regional infrastructure improvements that Mr. Schirm was talking about, when is the phasing going to happen? But when we look at like the maps, we put restrictions on how close they can be to property lines, how big the buildings can be, tall, wide. We put limitations on what they can do, what the uses can be. There's limitations on if it's housing, what type of housing, what phase, and what happens first, second, third, fourth. So that's, I think maybe in the past, we've had rezonings where it's like, hey, this user wants to do this thing on this property, and you're able to see like the visuals. That's why, there's no signs on the signage.
Right.
But they're talking about materials and bricks and facades and transportation. So it's just different. I guess that's my spin on what Mr. Shrim said.
Much more briefly, which is not my specialty. But yeah, it's a chicken or the egg. And in many jurisdictions, there's this proactive, with larger sites, larger tracts of development land, this is how it's managed. That's helpful.
I just have one question. Are out parcels, service buildings, say trash enclosures, things that are accessory uses to the primary uses, are those all still going to meet the same architectural standards?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes, that's an intent. Confirm yes, that's how we've specified and correct. Yeah.
That's all addressed.
So that is all addressed. And with regard to even service entrances and what defines a service entrance and where it's visible from. So we've really made a lot of, if you can see it, that's nice.
Yep.
Right.
That was the things that came to mind, like a gas station that was part of something, or drive-throughs. Trash enclosure is one that always comes to mind.
Right.
Okay.
And here, once again, all that is a final development plan. Every aspect of that development, trash enclosure, traffic circulation, parking, all that comes back to you. For final development.
That's what I wanted to hear, Mr. Fisher, on record. Thank you, sir.
Don't leave and go to Costa Rica.
I do have one other question, is about access.
Yep.
Sub-area B only has one access point. And I assume you're gonna try to do access roads, or you're gonna figure it out some other way, because you're gonna really be limited by whatever that transportation impact study returns there. So, if it's not fully baked, it's not, but can you tell me what you're thinking?
Absolutely, I can tell you what we're thinking. It's not fully baked for sure. It's like if they were cookies and we took them out of the oven, they'd be like, running through our fingers. Let me go up here. Because this detention pond here, or really it's not a detention pond, it's a borrow pit that we built so the interchange would have enough fill. And we built it and this ties into the access, and we built it here because it was the least impactful, because at some point we thought this might be, and so might be some city use or recreational park, or we don't know what it's going to be. But we're going to have some type of circulation out here, if it's emergency access or whatever, and we haven't figured it out. It's the other big variable between sewer. How do we develop this? But there are options for this pond, which is depending on the hierarchy of the county, the city, and the state. This pond was built to design standards to take all of the regional stormwater from the rest of Galena Road. So we were trying to plan ahead, even ahead of ODOT, because stormwater was hard for this project. For every major highway project, stormwater is hard. So what we've talked to the city about and the county about is, if the guys to the south wind up providing that stormwater for Sunbury Parkway, this pond could be filled back in, properly compacted, and there could be a circular route through here. Or if this pond is filled back in, there could be a secondary route through here. So those are the options we're looking at. Or some hybrid thereof.
Okay. Like
this pond could be maybe partially filled in like this and then come through. Access, it's very access challenged. We think, hopefully our neighbors will be glad to hear us, it's going to be quite some time before that gets developed because it's just hard.
And natural kind of gap there, isn't there? Power lines or stream or something?
This gap, do we have the color? area, you have the, Alex, there's one of these that's green, but yes, you have the overhead power lines that you're all familiar with that run all the way through Delaware. There you go. Let's go to this one right here. Go up, actually, this one's better. So you have the huge overhead power lines that come through Berkshire Township. They cut diagonally across our site, across the Hidden Creek site, and then across the Dye site. Then you also have a 16-inch high-pressure petroleum pipeline, transmission line, not like a little one, and that runs through there. And then we've got this stream corridor, which we're protecting. And then we've made this green space, and the thought being that in time, when this builds out, there can be connectivity through here, into the Dye site, into Hidden Creek, connectivity up this stream corridor, up into the Fallon Gilbert site here. And so this little wonky area here really yields just, it's like 8 or 12 acres. It's very little development land there. And we will have other access issues, to your point, Mayor, of the proposed location of the Sunbury Parkway Galena Road intersection is roughly known, because that alignment study is roughly done by ODOT. It'll probably have to be updated. And there'll be some minimum distance that will be required from that intersection going north before the county, because Galena Road's still a county road.
Right.
Will approve that. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be a ways out. There's some placeholders.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be challenges to development at a high standard, even if the pond is filled in, because you're gonna need to figure out access.
Right. We think that site, like, uses, when I just think about it in my head, maybe a church site, things that aren't, limited access, that's, big traffic on Saturdays and Sundays in and out of the facility, but not weekdays on Galena Road. We don't know. Any other questions, Mayor?
No, sir.
Yeah, I got probably 10 questions. I'll try to sum it up in fewer. I guess the first one's for Alex. The nature of the divergences. There's 16 divergences being requested for the PCD. And I guess my question to staff is, are we providing blanket approval by approving the PCD so that all 16 divergences are accepted?
Yes, that would be, if the PCD was approved, all 16 divergences would be accepted. I will note that most of the divergences reference our current zoning ordinance, which, as I touched on at the beginning, this site was not the intention of our current zoning ordinance. That was limited to here. So most of them do comply with that. But to answer your question, the PCD would approve all 16, yes.
I'm gonna jump in on that too. So like the intent and the part is a little bit in front of the horse on this one. And that's just because the parkway is being built. Our comprehensive plan took longer to build, the Sunbury Parkway District Plan, and then the adoption of the comprehensive plan. It took longer to get through the process than we initially anticipated. The initial intent was to take the Sunbury Parkway District Plan and then build zoning codes off of that. And you'd think like the plan is a vision and the code is, the specific requirements. We're really taking what the comprehensive plan says and fits it into this. And that's why there's so many divergences, because we're fitting a round hole in a square peg, whatever they say.
That's correct, Mayor.
Operation.
So all the divergences here, your code predated the master plan for the parkway and predated a lot of contemporary development principles. What's interesting is if you go back and look at the 2015, 2016 text, while your code says you have to specify your divergences and give rationale and reasoning for each, that old text simply says anything that doesn't apply is granted a divergence, which I didn't quite particularly like, because I didn't think that followed your code. And so that's why we've gone through in minute detail and said, this divergence needs to occur for this to develop as we want to, and this divergence. Additionally, I would point out that many of these divergences are ones that I have recently sought and achieved from the city on other developments in the area. So you're right that there are a lot here, but that's really the rationale and basis for it. That makes sense?
I understand, and I agree that the Sunbury ordinance was not developed or written around a PCD outside the interstate. However, it does seem like we're being asked to grant a lot of variances, divergences, excuse me. I would put it as a bit prematurely, without context for knowing how a divergence is going to be applied. It's difficult to say, is that divergence going to be a big deal or not? Let me give you a specific example. Maybe hopefully this will be an easy one. Number 8 is a screen divergence. And it's rather brief. Talking about, we're going to have a hardware store with a garden center, and they want to be able to display things without the ordinance says you have to screen that. Well, I think Menards does that, but none of the other ones do. So I understand that would be appropriate in the instance of that tenant to not have to screen. Even I think the second example is the fuel station. They like to sell mulch in the summertime. Fine. It sounds like, though, from the reading this, that the divergence applies to everyone. Does it? So if I don't have to screen anything anywhere ever because I took this one divergence and screening is now off?
Except there is other language in here dealing with what you can do on your site and how it must be situated and protected, and in some cases screened. So what we've done is we've taken away this major screening provision of your code and said, we can't make that work in the context of this environment, but we can make it work if you grant us divergences. Once again, every development has to come back with its site plan. And I think we've all been through this enough times to know that if you find something offensive to achieve the result that a developer or a user wants, they're going to work with you on that. But the problem with it is to wait until it occurs and say, you got to comply with our screening ordinance, which is pretty pervasive and doesn't work here. That's the reason we drafted it this way.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I understand that, and I understand why it's good to get out in front of these things, and I appreciate the way that you guys have addressed a lot of these issues. It just feels like we're taking a very black and white approach, and I'm trying to think down the road, how will planning and zoning react when somebody comes in with a use and throws this back on the table and says, hey, in 2026, you agree to this.
Right.
You know, this is a done deal. We're not going to talk about this. We shouldn't have to talk about this because you already granted us this blanket approval on all these divergences. This is a long list, and I tried to go over them and tried to apply just a general concept of why is this important? Some of the explanations were, this is going to be a more urban, more intense area. I'm certain it will be. I agree it will be. I just don't know that I'm comfortable granting blanket divergences at this stage without more data to say if it's appropriate or not. Now, I understand you will be bringing all of these back to us, so there will be an opportunity, but I just don't want this to become a binding agreement that is used against us. Is that?
Well, I don't want to, it is a binding agreement with respect to we diverge from your code on these points. A couple of points. Number one, if you would go back and look at the 2015, 2016 PCD code, it basically says anything that we don't address in here that diverges, the divergence is granted without any specificity. So I would maintain, for starters, that we have given you a better roadmap and a more protective roadmap for both you and the developer than you have into the current 2015, 2016.
Real quick, just to be specific, that this is what you're referring to. This property is zoned today.
That's right.
Right. So I don't know if that's ever been stated.
This and much more properties already been zoned. This is just one.
This was zoned in 2015, 2016 by another developer. And I think what you're saying is those standards were looser than what you're talking about now.
There was look at those were pervasive. I mean, anything that doesn't comply with code that they come in with the plan for gets a divergence. And what we did, we spent an awful lot of time going through and saying, we're going to comply to the letter and spirit of your code and say, here's the divergence we need, and here's the rationale and basis for it. But you're absolutely right that it does take the code away. But I think there's other language in here in terms of uses and site layouts for each development that must be complied with that should give you comfort on, for example.
Let me ask a question. If none of these divergences were approved, how would it affect you?
We wouldn't be able to do the development as we propose.
Couldn't ask for them as you go and apply for diversion.
That's not the way your code reads. And it would put each user, each developer coming in at risk that to seek a divergence to see if you're going to grant that divergence to them. Basically, if you look at your code, it says when you rezone a property is when you ask for the divergence, not later. Granted, somebody could come in later and ask for another divergence, but what your code says is as a part of the rezone, you ask for the divergences you're going to need for the project you're trying to design.
For plan districts. I mean, you may be asking like, okay, why did the variance request come forward earlier? That was not this is not part of a plan district. Fair.
I just want to make clear that it's not a blanket divergence. All the divergences we have identified in their place, we have installed standards within our development text. So,
give me an example.
Open space. Your text requires some percentage. We have rewritten that standard to accommodate our development standards. It's in the text. It doesn't, requesting a divergence from that doesn't mean that it doesn't apply. It means a different standard applies to this project.
That also applies for screening.
Absolutely. So all of the divergences have an alternate standard that will be incorporated into this text. It's not going to get floated out. And divergences are part of the planning process. Sure. That's why they're created. Otherwise, you just have a zoning code.
I think the other thing that's important is that 16 sounds like a lot. It's 58 acres. And your code was written in like 1975, or 80 and 90 and bolted on. And I think what we would be more than happy to do, and what I'd be more than happy to do, because it's clear that maybe the fear of the unknown about the divergences is, I think what we'd be more than happy to do is schedule a meeting and come up and sit down and go through every single divergence with you at the city's office and say, okay, here's the divergence, here's the code, here's the standard we're replacing with it. And actually, I got pushback from my team and my partners because what we are doing is the code that's in place, the zoning that's in place for this site, you could almost do anything we wanted to. And we worked really hard with the city. We basically took our rights and scaled them down to make them tighter, much tighter than what was in place prior, because we wanted to have a long-term vision for being here in Sunbury. And so we really have taken what you could drive 5 F-18s and 4 semis through and necked it down, I think, considerably. And the standards are even the standards radically higher. And I think the divergences aren't divergences in trying to get out of something, which is maybe what I hear. It's a divergence of clarifying what's required. And what the issue that we should already, like, theoretically, if there were a well-constructed PCD on this site today, we would already have our users committed. But because your code is so fragmented and the old PCD is so broken, there's so much fear around the unknown that no one wants to commit to the development. And so what we've tried to do is, just to Greg's point, is say, here's the divergence and here's what we're replacing it with. And it's very specific. And so, what I don't want to do is throw the baby out with bathwater because we're just getting 16 exceptions. That's not what we're asking for, is 16 exceptions. What we're saying is, this is your current standard in your code. Over here was some ridiculous gap that we could have gotten away with in 2015. We don't think that's fair. We don't think it's right. Let's put a modern today standard that meets best of breed in place. And so what I really, Jason, I reached out to you. I think maybe I called you and left you a message. I mean, this is exactly what I wanted to meet and go through, because I've been at this for 6 years. And we're not trying to pull anything over on the commission. I would love to sit down with you and literally walk through every single divergence, if that's a concern, and just, fear of the unknown, and just go through, this is the divergence, this is why, and here's, and then if there's still questions about it, we can try to work through it.
Could I ask a kind of a connecting question to your question? Alex, there's 16 divergence here, and I know we've been working on the new zoning code. Would there still be 16 with the new code if it was approved as is? And I know no one's really seen it yet.
It's not a question I'll be able to answer correctly. There would be less. I could say that, but I would not know specifically which ones would not, because I didn't review the site plan against that. But with that, the intention of the new districts was to capture what the Sunbury Parkway Master Plan put in place. And I believe that is what the applicant is trying to do as well. I think even specifically like the height requirements that they're looking for are the ones that are stated in the Parkway Plan. So I know that had those districts been approved and in place, that is the standard we would have set for this. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can certainly, next time we come in or before the city council, if it goes there, we can have that list generated and brought forward as well.
I think that would be something I think city council would like to know, and I think both the developer, because I know we've tried to, when we're looking at the new code, taking some of the problem areas and fixing them, and to see where we might have fixed some of these areas in the code, so that when they would come to you, you would know that maybe it's not 16, that maybe it's only 10. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm just saying it might help in the future when we're also in a month or 2 or 3, when we do see the new code coming to us as presentation, we would understand that.
To your point, the recent rezoning I did for the apartment project over here, off of Granville Street, behind the dental office, I think there were probably 10 divergences just for that one singular project, just because of the age of your code and what we had to do. I will also tell you, to Jim's point, and also in response to questions, under the current PCD that's in place from 2015 to 2016, Mayor, I don't really remember, but I brought in a potential project 4 or 5 years ago that simply, because of the way it was written and what they were trying to accomplish, the developer basically walked away because it just didn't fit within the parameters of what it would take to have the project go forward. So I hear the divergence discussion every night of the week when I do this, and I understand the concern about the number of divergences. But I think, as Greg said, if you look at the divergences in each case, we set forth a new development standard. What we say is see divergence, and that's his point. We don't just say, like the current 2015-16 says, if it's not here and we need it, we get a divergence. We've said, here's the new standard we need, and here's the required divergence to give us that standard. So it's all in the text for you to be applied each time a project comes in for approval.
I was going to say is I think that's a good exercise to go through to use as a barometer, or like for context. I mean, it's a good context. But I don't think we're asking that we're going to say, hey, you know what, now based on our new code that nope. I don't know. Have you seen the new code? I haven't either. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to say like we're going to take that code and say, is it successful or not? I mean, the goal was to be able to say, follow the Sunbury Parkway District Plan and build off of that. It's a good exercise. I don't know that it's something that we say, yes or no to. Jason, I think your questions are really, they're good. I think and valid. the one thing when you read through the divergences, what it's not specifically calling out is like, okay, they've done a lot of research, like section S81.15.05. I haven't done the combined research to be able to like say, okay, what does our code say? What is their standard on what page? But in general, I feel like I get why the divergences are being asked for, and I'll say it nicer. Our code just needs a little bit of work. Well, it's not old and ugly like Mr. Fisher said on record.
And back, right, and back to the question posed to Alex and the response. Anytime, and I think Greg does this every day of the week like I do, anytime you have a plan-based zoning, planned district, you're always going to find some divergences because no project fits so squarely within that a divergence here and there isn't needed to make sure the project works. But that's why we do them, and it's why you have the right to consider them as a part of the rezoning process.
I know my question when I asked it probably put you guys on the defensive, so I apologize for that. But you put a lot of effort into drafting this proposal, and I can tell that these 16 divergences are important to you. That's why they're here. It's important to me to understand them. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. When I read them, there's the same last sentence on many of them, which the justification for this is boilerplate statement. Boilerplate statement. I didn't like that because I didn't really feel like I was getting a justification. It wasn't. It was like, hey, this is just the way it is. Kind of those statements. So I guess the wording was what kind of drew my attention as I was reading them. I kept reading the same thing. It's not intended to say this is not a good thing. It's intended for everybody listening, watching, or who watches this later to say, okay, we looked at this, we were thorough, they were thorough. There was a discussion about the importance of divergences and how they're used and why it's an important part of the process for you. This is the biggest PCD I've been involved in. It's the biggest PCD anywhere. And the PCDs that I've been part of, most of them have gone pretty poorly because the lack of planning, the lack of community input, and things like that that just didn't take into account people's thoughts and feelings. So this is something, there's a lot of material here from my side, from my perspective, not a lot of context to why this divergence is useful, important, a good idea, and it's going to be great for everybody. It looks like so far this is what we need. Okay, well, I just didn't like because what, this is why. So yeah, I would welcome any more explanatory information on each of the divergences. If that's something you're willing to do, to just say, hey, this is important and here's how it's going to help. That would be useful.
Let me, that's helpful, and let me answer that. I mean, by all means, we were happy to bring the whole team up and go through all 16.
It's not just for me though. That's my point. It's not for me. It's for people who watch these P&Z meetings, and so they can understand it as a community. I'm asking the questions on behalf of the community because I'm a volunteer on this commission. So I want everybody to hear that. I appreciated what we did, that I got up to speed quicker than most in reviewing the plan. I think that was a good tool for me to learn about what you were up to and planning to do and to be useful in this discussion. But I would like to see more of a improvement to the proposal to the community, I guess, rather than just a one-on-one.
Well, that's why we have the presentation last month and the hearing today, and we have, and so it's a public process. What I will say is, I guess it's a trust but verify. We've put a tremendous amount of time in this, 12 years, and we actually wrote these divergences in the anticipation that they would be of a quality and a caliber of what's happening now and most comparable markets that you want to be like in the master plan. And so when we say a divergence and then we replace it with a standard, we've attempted to make that as actually to save the city some efficiency, as something that would save them research that they could take back to Verdantis, your consultants, and say, oh, we've got to rewrite our whole code. Here's a whole bunch of stuff that another developer that's part of the process. And so the divergences, I think we've talked to Sean about this, and we talked to Alex about this, and Daryl, is that our goal is that this is, I think just by weight of paper, the PCD that's in place was maybe 16 pages. This is like 3, I mean, we really put a ton of work into that. And so, we are, by all means, welcome to sit down with folks. Divergences are complicated. They're not complicated, but they take time. And so it's, I don't know if it's efficient for people to come here and listen to all the divergences, but we're not scared of the requests or why we've requested them. We actually think that we've proposed something that's better than what's in place that you have on the property now, and something that's very cutting edge with best of breed communities that are working on their zoning codes, that it's our hope that that they could potentially, if you want them, become part of your new standards. Is that helpful in the context of what we're trying to do?
I would just like to add from my perspective, I appreciate all the work they put in, and I can tell, just like everyone can tell, I do not plan on voting on this tonight, because this is way too much information that they've taken a lot of time. And while I've had this a week, that's not enough time to digest and get everything. I've gone through it and I've read it, and so far I'm totally in support with it, what I've read. That doesn't mean I'm going to agree with it, but I like and I understand what PCDs are. I understand that there has to be variances because, or not variances, divergences, because what I won't allow in the rest of the city, this is going to be a special area that, yes, those can be allowed. What those are, I don't know yet. But it is not my, I don't plan on saying yes or no tonight unless I'm made to. And then if I was made to, then it would have to be a no because I haven't digested it enough.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
There's a lot to take in. I only got since Friday to read through it. How'd you get it so early?
I just said I carried it around for a week.
We did not expect or think there would be, but we know it's a lot of information. It took us a lot of time to do the work. We want to be thoughtful, and we want the commission to be thoughtful as well. We embrace that.
In closing thoughts, I do have just a recommendation. I know sometimes it's difficult to get on calendars and in the timeframes, for specific commission member. I do think it's important that our two commission members who were not here either listen to the recording or get in person for sure.
Right.
And I think it's important that our staff help us understand the divergences as well in the context of the comprehensive plan. So comprehensive plan, overarching vision, our code, and the divergences and the standards. So I get that concept. I haven't had a chance to dive into all of it in detail, and I'll let you know that I wasn't comfortable voting tonight either.
Right.
So yeah, thank you.
When we meet with, we enjoy the feedback. We want the feedback. We want the stakeholder involvement. And so we'll work with staff to get appointments set.
Perfect. You have anything else, Mr. Palmer? Mr. Stotterman? Mrs. Miller? All right. We don't even need a motion at this point. There's no.
To the extent we're definitely gonna have a meeting in July, then there's no need, but you could move the table just to be sure, to be safe, so we don't have to come back.
Okay, I'll motion to table until our next meeting.
I'll second it.
Second by Mrs. Miller. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor St. John.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
Mr. Palma,
Yes.
4 yeas, motion approved.
Thank you for presenting tonight. Welcome. All right, next item on the agenda. Staff presentation, rezoning fees, fee schedule. We go high level.
Yes, and we'll go through a presentation quick while we are handing out some materials for you. So you'll get to take all this home too, and this is preliminary. We'll bring it formally at a later meeting. But this is going to go over some of the aspects. If you guys, I think most of you were here. Keith, I don't think you were here for it, but last year, Alexia Gerber did a presentation regarding the fees, gaps in our current fee permits, and then some fee schedule information. So what Chantria is going to present on today is looking at the further research that we've done on that and how we're going to try to implement that into our current zoning ordinances and how to implement that into our current city ordinances. So with that, I will kick it over to Chantria.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you guys for having me here tonight. I know most of you guys on the commission, but if you don't know me, my name is Chantria. I'm the planning intern for Sunbury. And tonight I'm here to discuss the planning department's proposed fee schedule revision. So to start off, our proposed changes have three goals. The first one is to develop an updated zoning fee schedule. The second is to create a more streamlined, flexible, user-friendly fee schedule as well. And then utilize the additional revenue to support the hiring of an additional staff member. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So first, I'm gonna get into a little bit of background, just to kind of cover how we got to this point and, justify these proposed changes. The first thing I want to point out that's not on the slides is why we don't have a fee schedule in the first place. So essentially, back in 2022, the city decided to kind of outsource its building inspections to Delaware County. And the thought process there was the city wouldn't be doing as much in terms of like zoning applications, so they got rid of the fee schedule. However, we have since found out this is not the case because even though the city is not doing building inspections, we are still, handling the permits, reviewing them and approving them. So yeah, that's some of the background there. And then like Alex said last summer, the former planning intern Alexia Gerber, under the guidance and supervision of the planning department, did some research on Sunbury's current zoning permitting process. And so this process included reviewing Sunbury's past permit records, researching and comparing nearby and surrounding communities, permitting systems to Sunbury, assessing the best approach for Sunbury, and developing potential fee ranges based on community comparisons. Now, she presented her findings last year to the P&Z, but I understand some of you guys weren't here then, so I thought I'd give a little refresher. So from January 2023 to June of 2025, the city issued nearly 1,100 permits. 58% of these permits had no fees associated with them at all. The most common permits that did not require a fee include fences, decks, accessory structures, pools, and garages. So this is incredibly abnormal compared to other communities in the area. So when compared to communities in Delaware County, Central Ohio, and like the rest of Ohio, such as, the city of Delaware, New Albany, Galena, Powell, Sunbury is an outlier, pretty much to all of the communities, and that most communities require a fee for all permits, have a published fee schedule, and include inspection fees in their fees. So in her research also, Alexia found that Sunbury's permitting structure is pretty broad and it's difficult to track, which has created a lot of unnecessary confusion for both staff and residents. She estimated that during this time, Sunbury missed out on anywhere between $45,000 to $150,000 in revenue. And as our city continues to grow, it's pretty undeniable that our permitting volume will increase as well. So, and it's pretty clear our permitting system is unequipped to handle this growth. Because of this, the planning department provided a few recommendations for the city moving forward. The first is to create permit categories that are more specific, implement a flat fee application application fees, and develop a cohesive fee schedule and then adopt these fees. So with all that background and context provided, I'm going to get into some of the proposed changes now. In response to this research, the planning department developed a new fee schedule and a few changes to the zoning ordinance as well. First, I wanted to talk about the fee schedule itself. So as you can see, we created a few more specific permitting categories such as generators, fences, pools, decks, and so on. You have the full fee schedule in front of you in the packet I just gave you, but I included some of the kind of biggest new fees on the board right here. If you want, I can give you a second to look at the schedule.
So that question,
Yeah.
does this include the Delaware County inspection portion? Can't, right?
No, this does not.
No.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, but from the consumer side, it would be this plus whatever they're paying today to Delaware County. Is
Yes.
that right?
Mhm.
Okay. And right now we have 0 fees coming to Sunbury.
Yeah, I mean, some of the
For
bigger
these.
ones, like, major commercial developments.
Right.
Those have fees, but
We got a lot of fences.
these, they don't have fees. No.
All
So
those-
fences fences don't have fees, stuff like that. Kind of
We had to outsource the entire fee model, went away and
Yeah.
and you do a lot of work. I mean, you guys all do a lot of work.
So currently what we have fees for is new structures, additions, and then renovations of those structures. So if it's a major structure, yes. If it's anything else, no.
Are there
Do we know the combined number with Delaware County and this to get like an apples and apples comparison? Cause I saw like Columbus was $1,000 or something. I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
what I'm suggesting, but
If you like, I have the full like spreadsheet that Alexia put together with all of the communities she compared them to. I believe it actually might be in the appendix, but if it's not, I can
Okay.
give that to you guys.
thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. So moving on to some of the changes to the codified ordinance and the zoning ordinance. Aside from the fee schedule, the biggest change is going to be to remove all zoning related items from the codified ordinance, specifically section 1305.02. And incorporate them into the zoning ordinance instead. This ensures that if we ever have to make changes or adjustments to the fees, it will not have to go to council. It can be a kind of quicker process. Within this ordinance, the zoning ordinance, the affected sections include sections 81.05, 81.06.06, and 81.365. These sections will be changed to incorporate the new fee schedule as well as provide some more clarification in the zoning process. Particularly like, for example, it gives the zoning officer kind of explicit oversight over the permits, stuff like that. I also provided the red line text in the packet that I provided to you guys, if you want to look over the exact wording. And then
I do have a question on that. When you said it can be faster, wouldn't the zoning code change? Wouldn't that still come to council?
Alex, do you know?
Okay. Yeah, I believe the intent of it, and Sean, you can chip in if you need to, but the intent would be to take them out of the codified ordinance and move them into the zoning ordinance because that would just need approval through planning commission. Is that correct?
We'll jump in.
Okay.
All right. So I'll save the bigger stuff for the end and answer that one specifically. So I think the intent here is to have a separate standalone fee schedule that would not be within the codified ordinance text. Right now, what you see is it's actually in section 13, which is your building code, and it incorporates your engineering as well as your zoning fees. So the zoning fees are typically referenced and in this case, they are actually referenced in the zoning text part 11. But there's nothing there. They're actually stuck in the building department piece of it. So what's happening is we're taking it out of the building department, putting it within the zoning document where it's referenced, and then it'll have a standalone fee schedule. What's typical of most municipalities, you'll have the standalone fee schedule for reference. You won't actually have all of that incorporated into your codified ordinance. And then from a changing standpoint, and this will be referenced, and this will be something that council and this board will have to suggest or give some recommendation to. That is, in order to change the fee schedule, let's say you have a permit that's $100 and you want to increase it to $125 the next year. Annually, you will evaluate these, or semi-annually, or every 2 years. To do a change right now, it has to go through an ordinance process. The recommendation now is actually just go through a resolution process
Resolutions are typically more for things that are temporary in nature. So it could dive into either or. Talk to David Bream about this, the other law director, and Vic's here. Not sure if Vic has weighed in on this or not yet, but we're thinking resolution might be the appropriate manner. Sometimes it can be a little bit quicker, but it's definitely less formal than the ordinance piece associated with it. I think there's some public notices that also would be a part of the processes a little bit differently as far as resolution or ordinance. I think that answers your question. I'll pause there.
Yes. Sorry if I jumped to the end of the presentation. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on the expediency. I get it. I get what you're saying now. Like we're trying to implement a fee schedule that is like within our zoning ordinance. Absolutely. All right.
Thanks, Sean and Alex. And then, yeah, the final change would just be to implement the fee schedule into OpenGov, which is our online permitting portal. As you can see on the picture I provided, I already went ahead and did this. So the fees and the different classifications are already in OpenGov. They're just not live yet. So at the moment, people still aren't being charged fees, but once the process gets approved through council and whatnot, it'll be pretty easy to just go ahead and implement that. I'm also willing, if you'd like to do a walkthrough of the OpenGov portal at a later time. For the sake of time, I won't do that tonight, but if that's something you guys are interested in, just let me know and we can do that at another time. And so the planning department, believe that these revisions will yield many benefits for residents, staff, and the city as a whole. So for instance, the process will be more user-friendly, it'll be more serious, and it'll be more accountable. For staff, they'll be able to provide stronger oversight, and tracking the permitting process will be more efficient, and it'll save time and resources. And then, like I said, the additional revenue that we'll get from the fee schedule will go towards hiring the new staff member, the permit specialist, which will hopefully allow our current planning team to be able to focus on more bigger, important projects. And so overall, this will be beneficial for Sunbury's growth moving forward. It's going to encourage sustainable development and also guide growth and development in a positive direction. And it'll keep us consistent with some of the surrounding communities. So yeah, I just want to reiterate that most municipalities have a fee schedule, just not Sunbury. So this isn't like a new revolutionary thing. We're just kind of getting us back on par with everyone else.
I do have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm totally supportive of a fee schedule. I love a fee schedule. However, I am kind of on the fence on what you're saying about the Planning and Zoning Commission being part of the fee schedule. Are you saying the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to say, let's say it's a fence, we'll use that as our example. We don't have a fence fee and we say, Planning and Zoning Commission says we should have a fence fee.
Mm-hmm.
There's our line, and then the council puts the number that they're going to charge, or is the Planning and Zoning putting the number of charge? Where's the line between the two, the commission and the council?
So I believe this. So right now, you guys aren't voting on the fee schedule tonight, but you'll vote to recommend this to city council, and then it'll go through 3 hearings, which is kind of what I was about to get into. But so I think once that initially gets approved by council, it won't have to go to council again. If we want to change those numbers, it'll go to Planning and Zoning Commission. Is that right?
I'll jump in real quickly, and it's a great question, and maybe I should have led off with this. Why are you hearing the presentation tonight? And I think that's maybe some of the gist of the question. The reason that planning and zoning is a part of this process at this point is because there's an amendment to the text. And anytime you have an amendment to the zoning text, you all have to give a recommendation to council. So I would imagine, and Vic will correct me if I'm wrong here, once we went through this process, essentially setting the structure, now this fee schedule to be removed from the codified ordinance section 13, put into section 11, which is your wheelhouse. Once this process is in place, it's not likely that the fee schedule is going to have to come back before you. It'll really just take place at council every year. I would imagine we give something to the finance committee. They're dealing with the revenue and the amount, the dollar amounts that are associated with each fee, assuming we would do some type of study to substantiate the increases or decreases. And then at that point, I don't believe, and Vic, he's not shaking his head in disagreement, so that's a good sign, that this would ever need to come back to you unless there was a proposal that we do away with the fee structure and we change your codified ordinance in some manner. But that's the reason it's here before you tonight, is there is a zoning text, and per the ordinance and charter, anything that has to do with zoning, you all have to give a recommendation to the council for a recommendation. Maybe that clarifies the question.
I think so. Let me rephrase it to make sure I've got it. So if there's no fence discussion about getting a permit fee in our language, I'm using that as an example, not saying there is, and we decide that we should, the zoning code, so the zoning commission would be voting to add that to the language in our code. Then council would say, all right, we're going to put the 100, and then next year or 2 years down the road, the council says we want 150, but we don't have to be involved again because we put the language in the code.
I believe that to be correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's accurate.
Yep, I think that's accurate too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when
Great question.
I asked a dollar question, I'm sorry, that was mayor hat, not planning and zoning commission hat. But yeah, you're exactly right.
As a past finance director, I don't want this commission to be dealing with the dollars. I think that's a fine line between the commission and the council, and I wanted to make sure that that line was still staying.
So you're absolutely correct. We'll be doing a presentation to the finance committee. This touches on a couple different departments, so this will be presented to the finance committee as well. And then probably moving forward more in their wheelhouse, and then final recommendations and approval by council on an annual basis.
So back to you on the fee schedule. I know we're talking about zoning right now, but as a fee schedule, is it the intent of the fee schedule of the city of Sunbury that all departments that have fees be in the same schedule?
You want to jump in?
That is not the,
I can if you want. No, there'll be different fee structures. Really, it's just anything related to the zoning fees, like zoning certificates. So there's a number of zoning certificate types. You've got zoning certificate for fences or sheds or whatever the case may be. So anything related to zoning, the engineering pieces are still in the building code department.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
I can tell that my question wasn't very good. I'm going to use the police department as an example. The police department has a fee for putting the barricades out, and structure rental, extra duty cops and everything. I believe one fee schedule, whether it has different sections in it, should be the city of Sunbury. So if somebody as a resident came, they didn't have to, they just go to the fee schedule and they see, I'm going to the police department section, I'm going to the zoning section, I'm going to the finance section, engineering, and it's all in one place versus having 10 different fee schedules, that it should all be one document but might have separate sections for different ordinances.
Sure, kind of a user-friendly guide, but from a legislative piece, they're touched on in different sections of our codified ordinance. That's certainly something we could consider. I don't know the current structure of how the police barricades and things like that are set up, but a singular document would be something we could consider, and I can take that back to administration and as well as council and see if that's something that they want to implement, or if it's something that's already there that we could expand upon.
As a finance director and going to the finance committee, having one document that's part of the budget process makes it really smooth, because then you can have the same timing for every department versus everybody doing their own thing and own schedule in the finance department trying to gather all that information.
I agree. Appreciate the feedback.
Right. Yeah, thanks Sean and Alex for that, and thanks for that question. So yeah, I think we kind of covered everything else, I guess. So the next steps, actually, yeah, we can say here. So, sorry, go back. So the first step, which I'm doing right now, is collecting your committee feedback, and then we're going to go finalize this ordinance and fee schedule, do legal and admin review, and we will present this to the finance committee and city council, where it will be ultimately approved. And then you can go to the next, this is just like a tentative schedule for the next few months. So we will be back next month, and I believe you guys will vote on whether or not you would like to recommend this to city council. And then from there, we'll go to finance committee, and then our council readings will start in September. And that's all I had for you guys. I'm happy to answer any more questions you guys have. Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but maybe for Sean, probably a good idea just for our next finance committee meeting, just bringing up the feedback that Mrs. Miller had and just.
We'll certainly do so, and probably framing it a little bit different way for finance, obviously. So this is specific to the zoning. There's really three sections to kind of what we're trying to achieve here. One is obviously the fee schedule that's relative to zoning. The other piece of the finance. Got a note here. I'm going to refer to it. Second piece related to the fee schedule, more focused on cleaning up some wording related to the zoning certificates. So you have the fee schedule that we're adopting. I think you have a copy of that, but there's also some elements within our codified ordinance within section 11 that we need to clean up so that it's implementable as far as it relates to zoning. Some things that I think you want to consider that I don't want to be hidden in there, and you said I wasn't aware. There are some procedural pieces that we are suggesting or asking for guidance on, and there's some contradictory pieces in there that we're trying to clean up. So we want to make it crystal clear that we get this correct. Right now, you all don't do reviews on residential site plans. That is currently, I think, how we've got this structured. Now, if you want to do reviews and for a zoning certificate to be issued, that you would do a review on a residential piece, then we can certainly put that language in here. But right now, it just has you all doing reviews of industrial, commercial types of zoning certificates.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. So that's how it's structured now. But again, want to clarify that because that's a decision that you need to feel comfortable with as far as your recommendation to council. Do you feel that you should have some purview in that section, or are you okay with how it's currently worded? So right now it has some conflicting language in our current codified ordinance to where all site plans go before you, whether they're residential or not. But then for zoning certificates related to commercial and commercial and industrial, they go before you, but no residential. So it, like I said, it kind of conflicts. So we're cleaning up the ordinances in some way. I think that's the one that I wanted to call out so that you're not caught off guard. We've already mentioned the process moving forward, whether it be an ordinance or resolution. And then the third piece, and we mentioned that there's section 13. There's some modifications within section 13 to remove that. Again, not necessarily your wheelhouse, and that's not something you're going to review because it's not in the zoning section, but that'll be something the council will be reviewing as far as some text amendments to section 13 of the codified ordinance. So like I said, there's really three parts to this. One is the fee schedule, two is cleaning up the wording within the zoning text, and then the third is the building department piece, which we'll have to do some text changes to as well. So.
Great. Thank you, Shantria.
Thank you.
Good job.
I do have a question. When you're talking about cleaning up the language, are you cleaning it up and putting it in the current code, or are you cleaning it up and putting it in the code that we've been working on?
Great question. So we're putting it in our current code. And then when Alex and I start to do a deeper dive, as well as the committee, some of these will transition over, if they're not already there, into the new code that's been worked on. So certainly certainly something to review to make sure that it has carryover effect. Certain that it does or it doesn't, I'd have to look at it.
I think that section of the code was altered in the work with Verdantis CT. So I think that would carry over into the new section. But yeah, that's something we'll keep up to date.
Anything else on that? All right, any visitors like to speak with City Planning and Zoning Commission? Right. All right, looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Mr. Palmer, May 26, 2026 minutes. I'll second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Paula,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,
Yes.
4 yeas, motion approved.
Zoning report. Zoning report.
Go over it real quickly for you. 8 zoning certificates, 4 of them are new builds, 9 occupancy permits issued. All of these numbers aren't really on par with what we did last year, but we had a lot more developers, as I keep reiterating during these zoning reports. And then Ms. Miller requested a update on total units in the city. That's a number we're still working on. So TBD, it will be inserted in the zoning report once I have it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I have that, 3,372. No. Right. Thanks, sir. Any discussion, new business, Mr. Stoddard? Nothing. Mr. Palmer? No. Mrs. Miller? Hey, I want to say this, 4 of us, I think we did a really good job tonight. Thank you. I think it was really good feedback and discussion. Very productive meeting, a little longer than our typical meeting, but covered a lot of meat and, thank you. Last thing I wanted to say, America's having its 250th birthday this year. I'm really proud of this Planning and Zoning Commission and our city council and our staff. Just, this is what the whole public process is set up to do, is to have productive discourse and, achieve win-win situations when they're available. So I think that's what we're trying to do. And I'm really proud of that. And you're a big part of that. So thank you. Enjoy the holiday and have a lot of fun while you're at it. Next meeting, July 27th, 2026, and I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second by Mrs. Miller. Discussion. Roll call.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Soderman,